I think we're going to start. So we're on 95 people, which is fantastic. So welcome everybody to the general meeting of the reference model. As always, loads going on. We're very excited with some of the exciting things, some of the new changes happening, which we're going to be presenting today. If anyone, I think everybody's muted, but you can all take yourself off mute if you want to talk. And obviously anybody who fancies putting any comments and chatting and asking any questions, we are planning on having a bit of a panel later today, so feel free to put any questions that you want to ask in the chat. Okay, so let's get going. Agenda for today, a little bit about the community. We are going to be introducing the new and renewed steering committee members, and even half-renewed steering committee members, as in people who've been off and come back on later. Talk a little about the website. I'm not sure if Alison's on, but I'm hoping that Alison might be able to give a little bit of an update, but it's just a sort of a visual, really. And then we're going to talk about CDISC. So Paul and I are going to cover off where we are with CDISC at the moment. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the MHRA GCP meeting. So I would love to know from all of you who was at the MHRA GCP meeting. So if you were there, please put it into the chat that you were there, because we're going to give our reflections on the meeting, but it's going to be very much an open panel discussion. So do fantastic, Louise, if you've got any things you want to bring up, this is going to be an open forum, so please do. And then Jamie, unfortunately, I didn't obviously put in the bit about the TMF plan, but we will be talking about the TMF plan and upcoming TMF meetings and the next meeting. So the community, as you all know, we are now a steering committee of 14, because I will go into the details a little bit in terms of how things have changed. We have 334 active members, gone up by about 5 or 6 since last time. We've got 1,556 subscription members, again, gone up by about 50. And we've got 4,016 people in our LinkedIn community. Unbelievable. I have no idea where they will come from, but we've got 4,000 of them. So let's talk a little bit about the steering committee. So the steering committee, this is the steering committee as of today, and the people in the blue and the red are, and I should have made Wendy slightly stripy red and blue. The people who are in blue are the ones that were already on the committee, who have been re-voted in or are on the committee again, and the ones that are in red are the new members. Now, just to let you know that we put out a call for committee members. We actually usually had fewer people apply this time. We've had Russell Joyce, who I'm not sure he's on today, but he is standing down. So we say thank you. We've said thank you very much to Russell. We have Fran Ross today, who is standing down. Thank you again very much, Fran. And we have JP, who stepped in place of Fran, and Dawn, who is new to the committee, and Wendy, who should be striped because she used to be on the committee and then she was off the committee, now she's back on the committee. So what I'd like to do, if you wouldn't mind, is actually ask each of the new and renewed steering committee members to do a brief introduction. So Dawn, if you wouldn't mind, can we start with you?
Sure, and hopefully everybody can hear and see me in the Indianapolis airport. Dawn Nickham, I'm with the Inception Group. I'm the Executive Director for Quality and Compliance, and have been an active member of the reference model for several years now, and I'm very honored, very pleased to be part of the steering committee. TMF is absolutely my life, and it's something I talk about every day with my quality compliance clients. So thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to the next few years being on the steering committee.
Thank you, Dawn. Wendy, as the blue and red stripy person, could you come and introduce yourself, please?
That's great. Hi, Wendy Trimbley. I'm Executive Director of Clinical Operations at Acadia, Head of Process Systems and Inspection Readiness. And I've been on the steering committee for several years. I've been on the reference model group for, I think, at least 12 years. Been in the TMF space for quite a while, so I'm very happy to be back on the steering committee.
And we're very happy to have you back, obviously. JP, who actually people met relatively recently, but JP, if you could do an introduction in your new role, please.
Sure, thanks, Karen. Hi, everyone. It's JP Michelli, the Director of Document Management for Advanced Clinical. So like Wendy and Dawn, I've been involved with the reference model for many years now. Most recently, I've been on the Change Control Board for a little over 3 years, and over the past 8 or 9 months, I've been acting as the liaison between the Change Control Board and the various zone teams, bringing some additional support and organizational oversight to how the zone teams operate with the Change Control Board. So unfortunately, I will be leaving that role now, but moving on to the steering committee, where I'm looking forward to just continuing to support the future of the TMF community. So thanks, Karen, and thanks, everyone.
Thanks, JP. Alison, who I can't.
Yeah, sorry.
There you are. And by the way, I just stole the picture from LinkedIn, so I hope it's okay.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Alison Bargivandi, and I'm the director overseeing the TMF centralized function at Astellas. And I've been with the steering committee for a while now. This will be my 3rd term. I'm very excited to continue working and representing you guys on the steering committee. And some recent work I've done on the reference model is helping redesign the website and working with that team, as well as we're working on a survey to come out to the members. So the survey group, I've been working with them. So thanks again, and glad to be on the steering committee again. Thank you.
And Alison, I will, when we get to the website slide, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just talk through it, because that will be, it's all your work. I don't want to take any credit. Thank you very much. So Mary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Amanoil. This is my sort of 1.5 term. I joined December of 2020, replacing MC Poisson Carbajal from Pfizer. So I've been with Pfizer for about 25 years in a variety of different positions, but generally focused on document and records management. So I'm really excited to be continuing my stint on the steering committee. I am part of the implementation team for the CDISC affiliation. So I'm really looking forward to that work that we'll be completing this year. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary. And for those of you who haven't gathered, I'm Karen Roy, and we've got 128 people on today, which is great. I am one of the co-founders of the reference model with Lisa Mulcahy, and I co-chair the steering committee, and I'm still co-chairing the steering committee. And I therefore been on for a very large number of rounds. To be fair, we didn't have a steering committee until 2014, so it's on since then. And I'm also really, really excited about where we're going in the future with CDISC, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's and we're going to be, Paul and I are going to be talking about that in a bit. So anyway, there's your new and renewed steering committee. And again, thank you very, very much to Russell, who I'm not sure is on, and Fran, who I believe I see, Fran was definitely on because I saw her comment on the GCP meeting. So thank you very much to Russell and Fran. Okay, moving on. The website. So Alison, can you just sort of talk us through a little bit about this new look website, please? And what you've sort of done. I've just got a screenshot, by the way, so just sort of what you've done to it.
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've gone into the website recently, you'll see a whole new look. So it's been redesigned, and the idea is that it's a little easier to navigate through. And the other thing to mention is this is more of a temporary approach to this, because as you can imagine, as we join and link into CDISC, there'll probably be some other website design that they're going to want us to utilize, which is great. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions, or if you happen to see if there's any broken links or anything like that in this website, just let us know. Even at the meeting today, if you've had a chance to go in and you have any comments, please throw it in the chat and we'll take a look at it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks. I have to say, I think it looks really nice and clean and easy to navigate. I didn't have any problems at all working my way around and finding everything. So much appreciated.
Yeah, we have to give that credit to our website designer who did a great job, Lori.
Oh, well, Laurie, if you're on, thank you very, very much. Oh, I love that from Adam. Well done to Laurie B for 99% of the effort. Thanks, Laurie. I don't know, Laurie, if you're on. Are you on? I'm just looking. Laurie, I think you might be there. If you want to say hi. Oh, you're just going to say my pleasure. Okay. I was going to let you come on.
I'm on. Thank you so much for the shout out. It was my pleasure, and what a great team to work with, and what a great foundation to build off of.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Much, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on and talk. Before we go on to talk about CDISC, let's talk a little bit about emails. Now, Eldon, I know you're on. Do you want me to talk through this, or do you want to talk through this?
Yeah, I'm happy for you to take it. That's fine.
Okay, no worries. When I get it wrong, let me know. But basically, I think the message is to understand how things are working with when you subscribe to things, what should happen when you change companies, etc. So, for example, if you click on unsubscribe, you don't get anything. You will stop getting emails. But as Eldon put slides together, he said, you know, maybe consider deleting your account if you're actually not going to want to stay with us at all. And the other thing, and I noticed this when I did the couple of emails recently, if your email changes, you must update your email address. Don't just create a new account, because otherwise we just have hundreds and hundreds of failures from an email perspective. So that's on the main subscribe on the website. The other thing is, well, this is just information on how to go in and how to correct your email addresses. This will be going out to make sure everybody can manage themselves properly so that we can get all the emails out. Now, one of the things that when we get and talk about CDISC is obviously there's going to be some level of transition, and we will be having a very clear method of transition of people from both the website and from groups.io. So, but even now, it would be really nice if you could all go and actually make sure that your information is correct. And if you've got anything that's wrong, get rid of it. Anything to add, Eldon?
No, that sounds fine. I guess the only other thing that was probably worth saying, although this might be a bit risky, is if you're not receiving information about meetings, etc., it's possible that you have been unsubscribed because the email address is wrong. So yeah, go in and check. But the risk in saying that is that I know lots of people aren't receiving emails because they're blocked by their spam filters, and they're blocked, at an enterprise level. So it might not necessarily be because you've been unsubscribed, but probably the underlying message is go into the system, log in, and check your account and check your profile.
Mm-hmm. And now you've got a nice new website.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's thank Oliver. Get your company to whitelist the TMF reference model email. Good idea. Alban, I'm going to come to your question in a second, because we are going to talk a little bit more now about the CDISC transition. So Paul, need you, please, so we can talk through this. I'm going to start off just by talking a little bit about, although you and I never actually decided how we were going to split the slides. I'm going to talk and then you can talk. How about that? Does that work?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
because we didn't actually have a discussion about how we were going to split them. We just agreed them.
Yep.
So I think the update for everybody is the position paper was released on the 19th of January. It was available to the 9th of February. And basically, we've had nothing but positive. We had two key comments back. The two people who wrote the comments probably recognize their comments. We just put them out exactly as they are. And really, the message that we got through these comments was, how can we still access it for free? If we're a consultant, is that going to be a problem? How is it going to be managed moving forward? How do we maintain some sort of alignment to things? And these are all questions that we're taking into serious consideration as we have an implementation plan. And I'm going to definitely get Paul to talk through the whole implementation plan and what we're doing moving forward. But essentially, there was no objection whatsoever. So we voted 100% agreement on the 10th of February straight away, because there wasn't any point waiting because we had no negatives. And we have ratified our decision to form CDISC. The really great thing, unfortunately, Dave couldn't join the call today, but Dave Evans, who is the CEO of CDISC, will be at the TMF Summit in New Orleans, for those of you who are coming to New Orleans. And I hope to be there this time, not drinking virtual cocktails in my study, but actually drinking them properly in New Orleans. He will be doing the keynote speech, which will be great, because and then we're going to do a panel all about how things progress. Everyone's very passionate about the reference model, and we all are. It's in all of our interest, absolutely, to make sure that the transition and the deliverables are available, the transition is smooth, that everything is still as it is, we can still contribute, and we can still be very much part of the sort of the governance of the whole thing moving forward. So we formed an implementation team, and I said I'm going to ask Paul to go through the structure of the implementation team in a bit. But it's Paul, Joanne, Mary, Kathy, and myself. And what we're doing is we're meeting up with CDISC on a weekly basis to really drill into the things that are of any concern, and to make sure that everybody is aligned. As I said, we have weekly meetings. We're also going to join the CDISC board meeting in early April, which is very exciting, because we're being formally drawn into the organization, and it's going to be formally announced at the April CDISC meeting. So before I hand over to you, Paul, to talk through the focus and the implementation plan, is there anything I've missed out in sort of where we've got to today?
No, I don't think so. I think you summed it up well.
Great. Well, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about the implementation plan, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, great. So when we first started collaborating with CDISC, we decided that it was important to have a plan that we could sort of use to define all of the different steps that would be required for us to be able to integrate into the CDISC family. And we've been working now probably for about 3 weeks on this plan. And we've sort of come up with a series of different areas that we feel we need to focus on in the plan. So there are 5 areas. The first area is community, and it's obviously community first. And so we want to just discuss how are we going to manage the integration of our TMF reference model community into the CDISC family. So this is sort of talking about things like how do people subscribe or get their accounts transferred over. There's a whole bunch of things that we need to do to make sure that we can properly integrate the community. The next area is events. So there are different events that are occurring both on the CDISC side as well as within the TMF community. So we want to make sure that we're aligned there. Standards and governance. So this is a really important one, obviously, because we need to make sure that we can properly integrate into the way that CDISC does things moving forward. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there is going to be a transition period that's going to last at least 6 months. And so for the time being, it's really business as usual. but it will be more of a gradual integration over time in terms of governance. And then also we're looking at standards. So how is CDISC managing things, and how do we want to manage things in the future with them? The next area is communications, which is obviously very important. So we need to make sure that we're getting information out to the community so they know what's going on, and also any instructions that are required for you to start engaging on the CDISC side of things. And then the final area is technology. As you know, one of the driving factors for us affiliating with CDISC was to be able to evolve the model from the current spreadsheet. CDISC has a technology platform that they use to manage their standards, which is called the library. And so, the idea is over time, we're going to be able to start to leverage that technology platform to better manage the reference model and also to evolve it. So the plan is really being drawn up jointly by the subgroup that Karen mentioned. So there's 5 of us from the Reference Model Steering Committee, and then the CDISC management team. And we've each been sort of allocated a management team member who we're going to be working with in our different areas. And we hope to have a final plan ready for April. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we still need to work out, and time is moving fast. So it may not be April, but we hope that it will be in place by then. So that's really where we're at with the implementation plan. As we start to get something a little bit firmer, we'll probably make more sort of announcements and do further communication. Do you want to go to the next slide, Karen?
Yep.
One thing that we've been focusing on as well is what are the things that are important to us as a steering committee and also as representatives of the community. And this is something that we've communicated to CDISC because CDISC is drawing up a memorandum of understanding which will govern the way that we affiliate with CDISC. And so we've asked for them to consider 4 key points. The first is that all TMF reference model materials, so this includes obviously the primary reference model, which is the Excel spreadsheet, any of the guides and templates that we've developed over the years, the exchange mechanism standard specification and schema, and any other material that we have freely available today should continue to be downloadable for free by the TMF community. That's really important to us. If the reference model is moved to the library, and the library, if you remember, I was saying is the technology platforms from CDISC, from the Excel spreadsheet we have today, then read-only access should be available to the community to be able to consult the latest version of the TMF reference model. All volunteers, so current and future. So the volunteers are primarily the zone teams and the subgroups. So there's around 300 or so people, should be able to participate in and contribute to the evolution of the TMF reference model without the need to maintain a paid membership. As some of you may be aware, there is a membership model within CDISC where you can pay, or your company pays to be a member, and in return you get access to additional things such as training and other resources. But volunteers don't need to pay. They don't have to have a paid membership. They can just have a normal user account, and then there's a mechanism for enrolling volunteers we're currently working on with CDISC to see how we're going to manage that as we move over. And there will always be a community elected steering committee or similar body to represent the community and that drives the evolution of TMF standards and best practices. So that's really what we are today. The steering committee represents the community. We typically get involved a lot in trying to evolve TMF standards and best practices, and we'll continue to do that. Of course, we'll do that in accordance with the charters, policies, and procedures of CDISC. And again, that's an area that we're currently looking at. to see how do we fit into that, and are there things that are going to have to be changed to be able to accommodate TMF in the CDISC world. So those are the four key areas that we're looking to have integrated into the memorandum of understanding. I'm going to pause there and see if there are any questions from the audience on these things or anything else we've said so far on CDISC.
I was just going to raise one question, which Alvin raised, which is a good one, which is what happens if you've already got a CDISC account? And we've had quite a lot of debate about how do we move people in, because when there's two things you could do with CDISC. One is that you can just be on their emailing address, and you just get some information and you can unsubscribe, etc. But the other one is where you're a volunteer, where you're actively involved. So if for example, you're on the change control board, etc., etc. And I think we're leaning towards people having to register as opposed to grandfathering people in, because then it almost makes people stop and think, do I really want to be there? And obviously, if you have to register, there are certain things you're going to have to, sign up to. I think it was basically that you're not going to go in and say that it's yours when it's not yours, and it gets become part of an organization as opposed to just something that's freely available that you can do what you want with, really. So I think, Alvin, to your question about what happens if you already have a CDISC account, I don't think there'll be that you will just can't keep your CDISC account, but you will have the option to be part of the TMF reference model something. I don't know what something's going to be called, but Paul, what else do you think? I mean, I think that's where it's going to work. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's something that obviously we'll be communicating out once we finalize things with the membership team at CDISC. We'll be able to communicate out to the community, and we'll be providing very clear instructions on what you should do, and you'll be supported. So it should be fairly smooth. All right. Unless there are any other questions.
Yeah. Any other questions? Anybody? No. Cool. Everybody must be very happy with what we're doing then, Paul.
Hopefully.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Much appreciated. I'm going to talk a little bit about the clinical trial regulation impact. Oh, sorry, Paul, there is one question from Camille: who will need a paid membership? And as far as I'm aware, Camille, you will only need a paid membership if you actually want to access more than just the free downloadable tools. So if you wanted to access the standards, use the standards, vendors will probably, I'm assuming, need to have paid memberships. Would you agree, Paul? You're muted.
I mean, it's still.
Oh, not muted. Sorry. No, you're not. You're not. You're not. You're not.
Yeah, okay. No, I think. I mean, it's still being clearly sort of defined in terms of what the TMF membership would be. But for sure, as we sort of mentioned, we want to make sure that everybody can access the reference model as we know it, as well as all the material, moving forward for free, and that won't change. And CDISC is already committed to that. It's just if they start to offer, say for example, a way for vendors to be able to connect directly to their database and query the reference model that way, then that would probably be a paid membership. A lot of your companies may already be members of CDISC as well. It's probably worthwhile finding out for the data management side of things. So once we have more details on that, we'll definitely communicate. But we're definitely ensuring that we're keeping the reference model free and available to the community.
Yeah, so if you're a project manager and you work at ABC Pharma who's not a member of CDISC, you can still get a copy of the reference model, still use the reference model. Nothing will change negatively. In fact, it'll just become more organized, and you won't have the risks of us having the wrong information in our teams, in our meeting invites and things like that. So thank you very much, Paul. Okay, so moving on, just to talk a little bit about the clinical trial regulation. Now, there have been so many emails going around about the impact of the new clinical trial regulation, which is now in force. We've decided to hold an all-hands workshop on the 7th of April, 9 a.m. Eastern, not what it said in the email originally, which was 11 a.m. Eastern. And I did that specifically, brought it forward so that it would be easier on my European colleagues because then it's not quite so late for them. The plan at this meeting is for us to present an initial view on the documents and the possible mappings and consider impact, and then we will feed that back to the change control board. So this is not a change control board exercise. This is a sort of a starting point. And Martina, I can see that you're on, and thank you for your email. I'm really sorry, I've been very snowed under, but we would love to get your help in terms of getting involved, especially because I know this is one of your big areas of responsibility. So thank you for offering, and I'm going to email you, I promise you.
Wonderful.
Yeah, sorry, I did see it and I was like, I must reply to you, then I forgot, sorry. But the most important thing, and we've had a lot of people who have put their names down for this, but the most important thing, this is not a workshop for people to sit and listen and learn. This is for people who want to contribute. So I will be emailing everybody who's registered. And I didn't look today, but when I looked on Friday, I had 70 people. And just remind them that I'm expecting them to speak up and be involved and have opinions. But if anybody wants to speak up, have involved and have opinions, that's the Zoom link. It'll be in the slides that come round. I think we've just got to, it's something that every second question on the forums involves this. So we need to definitely have a view between us. Okay. So what we'd like to do now is completely shift and talk about it was actually, I put MHRA FDA Health Canada. It's the MHRA GCP seminar, but there was a lot of FDA and Health Canada involvement, which is why I put them at the top. But actually, it was obviously the MHRA seminar. And there were 6 of us who were on the steering committee who attended. And what I'm going to do is take down the slides and just everyone come on camera. We're sort of going to have a bit of a panel discussion, but I can see from the emails from the chat that there's a lot of people who attended as well, who weren't necessarily on the steering committee. So would love to hear from you guys. So I'm going to take down my stop sharing. Hold on. Stop sharing. Right, there you go. Excellent. So anybody, this is basically open forum for anybody to talk. And some of us had some thoughts and things that we saw. So I'm going to start just because I got my comments down on a slide, and so they're easy for me to go through. So I'm cheating because it's all there. I guess it was interesting because some of it you could say, well, you've heard it all before. But what was interesting for me was to hear the extent of focus on inspections, especially from an FDA perspective. I think that the what do they call them, remote interactive evaluations, which they've done, which are not inspections, are something that's sort of creeping more up and up. I think the other thing that was interesting is the debate that I had just with a few of us around the FDA accessing directly into ETMFs, and my current recent experience of absolutely they did. Although in the past they probably haven't as much. I think Todd circulated some paper where they sort of are saying that they're heading in that direction. The definite feeling I got from listening to discussions was that they're going to be accessing ETMF. So I think the long and the short of it is expect the FDA, my view, expect the FDA to be accessing your ETMF, and if they don't, great. But that's my view. I don't know. It might be worth actually just stopping and letting other people comment on as we raise individual points rather than going backwards and forwards. So Joanne and Mary,
sure. Yeah.
So
yes.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I think FDA was pretty clear
that they would be giving their inspectors the opportunity to directly access certain key systems. TMF was one of them. EDC is another. And I think they actually mentioned IRTs also. So,
Joanne, did they mention EISF too, or no?
I didn't hear that one, okay. No. Okay. But they've actually.
I'm sorry, Joanne. Let me break in there. Actually, I asked that question, Mary, and they never responded to it.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
This is Lisa, but I wanted to know specifically because EISF is becoming a much more frequently used technology. Sorry, Joanne. I was having trouble getting off of mute.
Yeah, I think they have updated their inspector's manual, so that really makes it pretty clear that they can do this now. Will they do it every time? I don't believe so. It depends on a number of different things. So
they very explicitly said part of their motivation was to reduce the effort for site staff in having to be over the shoulder. I heard them say site over and over and over again. Never heard them say sponsor, and they really were saying, you know, the read-only access was to reduce the burden in our pandemic situation, but they didn't speak to doing remote. They spoke to doing read-only so that there wasn't going to have staff supporting an over-the-shoulder.
Alvin makes a good point, Fran, which is
we don't do remote inspections very, very deliberately.
So I was going to say, Alvin makes a point which correlates with what you're saying around EISF, them considering EISF as part of the TMF, because the TMF is the documents at the investigator side and the sponsor side. So maybe you're right, Alvin, in their head, they're going, that's just the TMF. So it's remote access to the TMF.
Just an add-on to them accessing the TMF directly. I had asked Mia Young a question back in the fall about if they had received any type of training on eTMFs during the pandemic, because she was talking about how they had undergone an extensive amount of new training when they were sequestered from the pandemic. And she had said, yes, that they had in fact had some eTMF systems training and some training on how to use the eTMF itself. So not surprised to hear them now saying that they'll be in the eTMFs.
Well, I must admit, I actually ended up training a couple very recently, and they were very receptive. And then, of course, you go and track what they're doing, because that's what you can do now, is go and see what they're doing. And they were very busy. In and out, looking at documents, no problem at all. So I just think it's one of those things that we should just all expect. And then if they don't, then, you know, because there's nothing worse than them turning up and go, oh, can I get access? And you haven't prepped all that you need, the guides, the tools, whatever else you're going to do for them. I think that would be the worst thing ever. I thought the FDA seemed quite forward looking in terms of how they were talking. That's what struck me, was that they seemed to be thinking about what's happened during the pandemic, and then how you can move that forward into a more BAU type way, as opposed to, oh, this was the pandemic. So Louise, I think you should join us, Louise. I'm really sorry. Can I put you on the spot? Come and join us.
I think Louise makes a really good point. I think it's something
absolutely, but I want her to come and join us, Louise. Go on.
Hi there. I'm sorry. Yeah, Andy Fisher talked about the training, and I'm a bit in his camp, because I'm sick of doing the same hour or 2 hours of training with different clients. And if I was getting proper inspection, I do a lot of mock inspections now, so I will hold my hands up to being a former inspector, but I do a lot of mock inspections. And when I do the training, what I'm really looking for is, what modifications have you made to the TMF that make it different from the standard model? And what I get is basic training on how to use the TMF. And I think nearly everybody knows how to do that now. And Andy mentioned, it'd be really nice if the vendors of TMF systems offered a certification that you could port from one place to the other, so you don't have to do the same read assignment. I mean, I get training that's supposed to be read only telling me how I'm going to upload documents, and I'm not uploading anything. I'm just reading things. So I think it would be really good if there was a mechanism for doing that. We understand that you know, it's the same with sponsors. Even when I'm doing mock inspections, that they like to track around and have a look at what we looked at. I did get a disappointment from somebody when I'd not reviewed all 70,000 documents in there.
Louise, just to call out something you just said, is that I think that sponsors need to do a really good job of educating the inspector, or the auditors in your case, on some of the rules associated with how they use their eTMF, right? Not just how to move around in the system, but what are some of the rules that they put into place that are specific to their organization?
I agree. And things like trials, the best for managing those. You really want quick hints and tips. Andy mentioned you never need training to use a paper file. But I do feel sometimes, I feel like where I used to put my little post-it note in so I could go back to the same thing, that's really hard to do with some TMFs. So others, it's great. You can favorite them and it's easy to do. But with others, once you've shut that file, unless you've got a document identifier, you're never finding it again sometimes.
I think that makes sense. I'm just seeing, sorry, I'm sort of just looking at all the comments as they're coming in as well. And I agree with you that the way we train inspectors needs to change. I mean, Karen was saying, I don't know which Karen that is, but Karen was saying no need to train. We asked what they need from us. Oh, hi, Karen. Sorry, I didn't know which one it was. And then what we do differently, a tip sheet. And I agree. I actually, when people ask me what to do about inspections, I say, well, have a few slides that say what you do and how you do it, because everything's a bit different. You know, this study gets imported, this study is managed this way, this study has had 2 CROs working on it. That, so you can tell them a bit of a story. This is how you manage your users, this is how you do this. And then, oh, by the way, have you had the training on the system? Okay, just as a reminder, we've done this differently, or we don't use sub-artifacts, or we do use sub-artifacts, or whatever it might be. So I think that's a very good point. I've got a few other, I'm going to leave everybody out because I've got a few other points that I'd like to bring up, but I'm not going to be the first one to bring up all the points because that's just cheating. So who else wants to bring up something that they saw, that they heard, that they thought was very interesting or stood out effectively?
I think the most direct impact of TMF was Health Canada, talking about their change in legislation in February. They've reduced the archive period from 25 years to 15 years. Go Canada.
And Europe have gone the other way.
Yeah.
Go Canada. Hey, Fran, did they give a reason why they reduced it? Did they explain their sort of rationale?
The health authorities, the flavor of the 3 days were about being interactive, helping support, communicating, moving clinical trials forward, and not being a restriction or an impediment to improving clinical trials.
I think I heard them say that they were trying to reduce the burden. I'm sure they used the word reducing the burden in relation to the retention. Sorry, Joanne, you're going to say something?
Yeah. I thought it was very interesting that they were very interested in new methods and technologies, and they really advocated discussing new things with them early because they wanted to make sure, I guess, that, you know, as you're going down that path, you've considered everything so there's no surprises at the end. But they did say documentation is key. Loved hearing that. And they especially focused on the risk assessment and mitigation, and really want you to have good documentation. You can't just say, well, it's because of COVID. It needs to say something a little bit more than that.
Yeah, I think that translated over to their conversation on data integrity and subject safety as well. They talked about making sure that companies have a risk-based approach to how they look at that. And then really looking for organizations to have some agility. In other words, if you have an issue, what changes have you made? How have you gone about correcting that, that issue that has occurred? And then a lot about communication. And when they talked about communication, they wanted to see things like related to site communication. How are you communicating issues to your investigators, your sponsor teams, and then your CRO, so like your vendors, like making sure that there's communications with everybody. And I know that communications are always a hot topic anyway, and you know, how to file them, but making sure that if you are communicating things in emails, that you know where they are and that they're filed in such a way that you can actually find them, especially if they're related to how you managed risk.
Yeah, I missed the data integrity, that one, unfortunately. It was on the third day and I didn't think the agenda looked that interesting. And then you said, oh no, actually it was quite interesting.
Yeah, it was labeled as laboratory. So at first I was like, I almost didn't attend. And then I was like, well, I always like, and then I was like, whoa, this is so relevant. And I looked and the slides from day 3 aren't up yet. So I looked to see if I could pull them.
Oh, I thought I saw them, Donna.
Maybe they are. They weren't there when I looked yesterday.
Oh, okay. So the one thing that I thought was interesting is the recognition about the prevalence and the increase in complex studies and complex study designs, because I do think that will be very impactful for trial master files, especially, you know, if we're seeing complex umbrella studies that have multiple sub-studies and those sub-studies are registering separately. I think, you know, that impacts how we're going to manage the TMFs for the umbrella and then for the subs. It's an interesting topic because I think operationally it is very complex and something that we need to watch out for. Yeah, and Louise, you're right. It's a nightmare for platform studies.
So I thought it was quite interesting that Health Canada talked about a new type of inspection before patients are recruited. And I'd never heard about that before. And I just thought that was it's almost like a proactive type of, is everything going to be okay, as opposed to a reactive, what did you do wrong type of thing. I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree. But I thought all of the agencies really commented on the same thing. Come to us, talk to us, right? Let us know what you're planning to do. We're happy to consult.
Jo Marie, sorry, you just asked about the conference. It was the, someone's going to reply. Oh, no, it's the MHRA GCP conference. I don't know if there's recordings available to anybody. You had to pay for it. It was about £450 or something. So I don't know whether the conference is going to be available, but we many of us attended. So it's one of the reasons that we thought we'd share with everybody at this meeting today, so that we can, you know, the sort of tidbits of information that we got. It's usually, I mean, it's usually face to face. It's the first time it's ever been virtual that I've experienced. So anyway.
There's another really interesting direct TMF implication when they talked about recognizing that there would be an increase in protocol deviations from the pandemic and the impact of the pandemic on patient activities. And they wanted to make sure people understood it's important not just to document what happened, but why it happened and what the reaction to it was.
No, absolutely. And I think that relates back to COVID. I think COVID's made us think about a lot of these things a lot more because it's sort of triggered problems. Louise, funny you should mention it. So Louise's comment, does anyone comment on the MHRA consultation where they talked about streamlining the TMF? So there is an MHRA consultation on proposal for legislative changes for clinical trials, and it closes at 11 p.m. tonight. So you've got 7 hours. Sorry, my maths isn't very good. Oh, thank you, Fran. You've got 7 hours to comment on it. I know individuals have commented. I know, Eldon, you said you'd put some comments through. I remember seeing one big debate about it was changing it. It was around the use of the word subject, and there was all sorts of, there was participants and subjects, and there was all sorts of comments that people had. So it's definitely worth, if anybody wants to go and have a look and make any comments, being available till 11 o'clock tonight. While I'm looking back, anybody else got anything else they want to bring up as that struck them? I was just looking back because so many people have commented that I don't want to. If anybody else wants to talk up as well, please do.
Karen,
Sorry, Louise.
So
yes, go for it.
I do got one question, and I don't want to upset anybody of the the TMF reference model people, but it probably will.
Oh, careful.
One of the things that I've banged on a little bit about, MHRA mentioned a lot about innovative pathways and early access and things like that, and a lot of the issues that come up are the complexity of the requirements to have the evidence to support marketing authorizations and just studies in general. And I do wonder, I work with a lot of small clients where the TMF model is a little bit overwhelming, and I do wonder if there's the option to do, instead of, I know why it's built like it is, and I do try and explain, you know, you've been given everything you can possibly be putting in there, strip out what you don't need, but maybe we could do the model the other way around as well. So you've got a basics that people can build on, because I think they find it a bit daunting when they're in a biotech company or a non-commercial organization or an academic organization. And I just wonder if there's a bottom up as well as a top down version that could be made available.
I think we sort of tried to do that in some ways by having the core and recommended. In other words, these are the things that you absolutely have to have, and the recommendeds are the more nice to haves.
Well, if it's created, then you put it in, right?
Yeah. But it was more of a, we always were concerned that, and anybody else comment as well, but I think we were always concerned that if you put it in as a recommended, people think, well, I have to do it. And it's the same as the sub-artifacts. The sub-artifacts are a superset, and you absolutely do not need all of them. In fact, you can cut it, strip it right down if you're a small biotech. But it's an interesting concept as to whether there could be a condensed version of it's definitely worth thinking about. Hey, we've got a whole CDISC world.
Right, Karen, I was going to mention that with you know, we've looked at with how we would transfer the two-dimensional Excel spreadsheet, right, to a database, and being able to filter out by core, etc., and looking at what else you create. So I think more is to come on that, and the way that we can help the organization to really filter out what is in the TMF, right, depending on the study type, depending on their needs.
No, absolutely.
I think that's also the beauty of having zone sections and artifacts, right? If you want to group things together, you can into a single section.
Yeah, thanks. I like I say, I think I'm getting some tips on filtering and things like that. I do generally tell them to start there and maybe go back to the ICH essential documents and to flip between the two to see where they need to plug the gaps. But I think it just becomes, if you don't have a specialist function and you don't have a department, and it's one of the things you're doing in a month, doing the application, sorting out your CRO, sorting out your manufacturing and everything else, if there's only 3 or 5 people in the organization, it just feels a little bit, maybe I'll rely on the CRO's process. And that's not always the best idea, because they don't then take the full ownership. So it becomes challenging to justify things for audit and inspection.
Yeah, no, Louise, and there's quite a few interesting comments. I think Tanya said, wouldn't the vendors do some of the adaptation? And Dawn said you have the small companies that don't know where to start with the vendors. So I do think that the vendors play an important role in terms of they will generally have their own version that you can use that might be helpful. But I also think that it's really important that people understand that the TMF reference model is the all-encompassing piece. And we were very nervous when we put sub-artifacts out, because we were nervous that it was going to freak everybody out. I think it would definitely be a good thing for us to be thinking about with the new database, how you can say, okay, just show me the things that really matter, not everything as such.
I'm sorry, Karen, I will always advocate for some things really matter, but it really depends on the study, right? So,
yeah,
so it's hard to say only core, because it might really matter that you have an unblinding plan. So, which is, relevant if you have a blinded study. So the other thing I wanted to add is I really picked up a very small but specific requirement for oversight.
Yeah.
And I really felt like they touched on it for about 2 minutes. I feel, but it was clear to identify who the delegate is and really identify the oversight plan and evidence of that oversight. And often we forget that from a TMF perspective, that evidence of oversight needs to be there as well, ensuring that, when we outsource that, it's not something that's forgotten. We think about it from monitoring, we think about it from either whole functions are outsourced, but TMF as well.
No, absolutely. No, I actually think there was one other session where they were talking a bit about oversight. It seemed to come up quite a bit. The other thing that oh gosh, we're out of time. Oh my gosh, I just realized we're out of time. Sorry. Two things that I heard. One of them was quality by design, which goes back to the whole risk-based thing. And the other one was I was really interested in the amount of real-world evidence focused. Lots of talks about real-world evidence. So, gosh, guys, well, I didn't realize that we were out of time. Just shows you what happens when you're having so much fun. Thanks everybody for Jamie. Do you want to do a 2-second quick pitch on the TMF? Plan work stream. Sorry, I've just put you on the spot really quickly.
We kicked off. There's 14 of us. We have 3 sub teams underneath, and we're hoping to have at least a near final draft by December 15th, maybe earlier, but because trying to get people together, and we want to do a good job, and that's the update.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Have I shared the right screen? Oh God.
Yes.
Have I scared? Okay, right. Hold on. Let me just move this out. Whoa. Okay, so because I'm sure everybody's going to have to go. Very quickly, here's a list of the events coming up. Fierce Farmers TMF Summit keynotes, Dave Evans from CDISC, as I said. And I've talked about, there's the HSRA conference in Manchester, and I've talked about our clinical trial regulation impact. And the last thing to mention very, very quickly is the next meeting is on the 9th of May. Thank you very much, and apologies for rushing the last bit, but we've still got 120 people on here. So thank you very much. I think that was a really fabulous discussion. Thank you everybody who came on, and sorry I didn't say thank you properly. I think that this sort of a debate is always very good to incorporate into a meeting like this. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care. Have a good Monday. Have a good week. Stay safe, stay well, all the rest of that. Bye.
Thanks, Karen. Bye.
Bye, Karen. Thanks. Bye.